the challenge that we face is it's not a solitary one. This is a challenge that all of the projects throughout the United States have faced, is how do you fund the work that you're doing?
My project in California would have never come into existence except for our initial funder. And our largest donor in the 15 years of our project has been the rock band, the Eagles. Now, that's awesome, but it's crazy the fact that we're out there trying to mop up for mistakes by the criminal justice system. And we're trying to do work that the government should be doing, and we're getting funded by aging rock stars. That is not a sustainable model. And every project struggles with this. You know, they have bake sales, and we do a dodgeball tournament every year, and we're constantly trying to think of creative ways to raise money to do this work, which pulls people out of prison, which saves the government huge amounts of money.
Every time we get someone out of prison, it saves the government $40,000 to $60,000 a year in housing costs. And that's just take away all the other associated costs when someone's wrongfully incarcerated. That's just the raw money that we spend housing them. Forget about their families and social services costs and everything related to the pain of a wrongful conviction.
The work that we're doing is really an extension of the obligation of the state. We're taking cases that are still in process, if you will, as cases, even and where there's no provision for state funding, even for a lawyer to help these individuals to achieve their innocence. And we are actually, taking over that responsibility. And in addition, we're saving the state significant amounts of money. Just the 6 exonerees we've had, for example, we've calculated on the most superficial level that we saved the state about $3 million in incarceration costs, plus a whole set of other costs that are involved. So funding remains a significant challenge. And the challenge is primarily on 2 levels. One is how do you generate funding for operational expenses, just the basic staffing for stability over the years. And then the second is how do you generate money for litigation expenses.
It's for things like gas money to get out to those prisons, which are usually in the middle of nowhere. And it's to pay for copy costs for transcripts, and it's to get crime scene photos, and it's to get expert witnesses involved in our cases. You know, it's not to pay for expensive CEOs, it's not to pay for luxury offices, it's not to pay for huge attorney's fees. It's just the basic costs that we need to operate these projects.
It's expensive. You pay your attorney, you gotta pay travel costs. I mean, none of the prisons are conveniently located, witnesses, paying to get copies of documents, photos. And then, some experts might help you pro bono. Some of them need compensation. And what I've also kind of discovered is the ones that will help you pro bono, you go to the bottom of their list. And so it's going to take even longer. Whereas if you can pay them, they're going to put you on the top of their list and they're going to get it done because you're a paying client. And so without funds to work the cases, it drags out even longer.
The biggest problem is resources. And by resources we mean funding. It's not just a problem for our Innocence Project, it's a problem across the country. I hope that in 10 years that we have as many, if not more, projects that are in existence across the country. I'm cautiously optimistic that we will, because I do think that there is some groundswell of let's get it right. But we have so many applications for assistance from inmates, from lawyers, investigators, and others in the system that it's hard to keep up with them all, to put it mildly. So funding, personnel, these are the biggest problems, and really everything that we deal with kind of starts with that.
The biggest awareness that our communities of these Innocence Projects should know is that they're these innocence projects are nonprofit organizations. They're student law firm clinics. So this money only comes, the only way that they're funded is from grants of the government or donations from people who see that this cause is a worthy cause. And the grants that they get from the government aren't really vast or big enough to support what they're trying to do. So it's gonna require the communities to get involved, to donate, to talk about the Innocence Project and the movement itself, so that these wings of the projects can grow and that they can help more people.
I'm a staff attorney with the Illinois Innocence Project, and I am funded entirely on a federal grant. And our project is primarily funded by grants. And what is really interesting about that is, as a project, you're faced with these financial, crises in some ways, because your grant comes up for renewal, or you have to apply for the grants again. There's no certainty that you're going to get the same money that you've gotten, or that you're going to get any money at all. And so the longevity and sort of like the long-term plans of the organization, I think, are difficult to pursue in a way that you have like 100% confidence. You move forward with the full belief that the project will be able to exist indefinitely, but there's no guarantee, because so much of the money is grant funded, and grants are, governmental and in many cases, and the sort of the winds shift, and who knows what's going to happen. And I think, a lot of people believe that most of these projects are, through some rich law schools, and they're all funded through law schools, and it's just not the case. And it raises interesting issues for the lawyers out there, because you take on a case and you file an appearance and you're the person's lawyer, and what happens if the money's not there? So we have an ethical responsibility as lawyers to continue representation of people. Then you sort of combine that with the money situation of different projects, and it's really difficult to the work is so difficult that then to have the issues on top of it of having to raise money all the time is really frustrating. And you really just want to, throw yourself into the litigation and into the work and into the public policy aspects and everything that you love about the work. And at the same time, every organization has its own, executive director who's out there like pounding the pavement, trying to raise money and, fund these nonprofit organizations. And, it's difficult.
I find that's kind of a big misconception amongst the general public. They think that we are all affiliated with the original project out of New York, and if they give money to New York and or Barry Scheck and Peter Newfield, and they fund us all, and we don't. Each project is set up independently, and so our project here in Illinois has been funded by private donations from the community, and some state support from our university, and then federal grants that we've applied for and received. And I was hired under a federal grant. That grant program is being discontinued, and the federal government's not authorized any more money for it. So, and the project itself hasn't been able to generate enough revenue. We're going to be, looking for some pro bono counsel to help with the cases, probably trying to partnership with other projects in the state, and I'm hoping to stay involved on a limited basis. Some of these clients become very near and dear to you. Some of them don't have anybody but you. They've been in prison for 15, 20 years. They don't have a lot of family. They don't have friends left, and you're their last hope, their last chance to clear their name and to get out of prison. And it's not the type of work that you can necessarily walk away from, like maybe other types of law.
You have to have rock stars whose glory days are the, I'll say, 70s to fund the movement that, like the check on making sure that the justice system gets it right. So I think that little work we do is excellent. However, I think like in many ways it's precious, it's tenuous, and it needs to be protected to the extent possible.